my name's Addie, and for today's video, I'm going to be tier ranking all the books I read in 2024. I'm going to split it up into 7 categories. Those categories are DNF, meh, we listen and we don't judge. Yes, this category was inspired by the TikTok trend. Books that were good, personal development, unmemorables, and I can't stop thinking about it. With that introduction out of the way, let's dive right into the DNF category. Starting with Lights Out. I only made it 15% into this book. It's literally corn. Within the first 15% of the book, he manages to break into her house and film a spice video, okay? If you like dark romance and books that are very, schmutty, then you might enjoy this. I personally was not into it. Then there's Shark Heart. This book has such a beautiful cover, and that's literally all it is because the inside of it is trash. I think I made it, what did I write on here? I think I made it like 20 or 30% into this book before I was like, I'm not gonna read this. Then there's Asylum. This book is very YA, which typically I don't mind reading YA books, but the progression of the story and the writing was just really bad. Coupled with the fact that it's YA, I DNF'd it. And then there's Water for the Elephants. I made it 30% into this book, and it's not that the book was bad, it's that the writing style is just not my preference, so I couldn't get into the story, which blows because I heard that this is a really good book. The last one that I DNF'd was Blood and Ruin. This is another one that has a really pretty cover, but it's just a corn book. It is smut through and through. I don't think that there's a plot, but I also didn't make it far enough in to find out if there was a plot. Next, we have the meh category. So these are books that I read them and they were all right. I'm probably not going to recommend them, and eventually here I'll forget all about them. Starting with the Cruel Prince series. It just didn't live up to the hype. I just didn't find the story to be that good. The political world aspect of it was pretty decent, but I think like the dialogue and the story progression, I just didn't find it to be very good. Nor did I really like the main character all that much. I did like her dad or stepdad or whatever he would be considered. Matic. I know I'm pronouncing his name wrong. And I would recommend that you look up fan art for this series, whether you read it or not, or even if you don't plan on reading it, because he looks like Piccolo from Dragon Ball Z, and I can't unsee it. Next one is the Carvel series, or Caravel. I'm probably pronouncing it wrong. Yes, I am one of those people that butchers the characters' names. It is what it is. This series, I liked it while I was reading it, but when I was looking back at what I read during the year, it was just okay. I think I only liked it because of Jax, I think his name was, and he's from the second half of the series, because there's the first 3 books, which follows a game that you want to win so you can get a prize, and then there's the second set of 3 books, which follows Jax and him trying to break his curse so that he can fall in love. That one was a really good series. Next is The Masterpiece. I would have liked it if it wasn't for this one scene that was very unrealistic. This is a Christian book, so if you're not into those kind of reads, I wouldn't recommend picking this up. But if you are, I still wouldn't recommend picking it up because of that one scene. I'm not going to say anything about it because I don't want to give any spoilers, but it was cheesy. And the last one is House of Sky and Breath. So this book, I wouldn't recommend it, but I wouldn't not recommend it. So if I know you've read Throne of Glass and you've read A Court of Thorns and Roses, I'm going to tell you to read Crescent City. Why? Because the ACOTAR characters show up in this book. That's literally the only reason I'm reading it. And it does have a lot of like subtle hints that reference the other 2 books that Sarah J. Maas has written. But I don't like this series. I really find it to be lacking, and it's really dense. Like the books could have been 10 times shorter. Next category is We Listen and We Don't Judge. And we're not going to judge that the very first one on here is a Colleen Hoover book called This Girl. I know nobody likes that author now and they think the writing sucks and it's weird. I think that they make phenomenal fluff reads, and I'm just going to die on that hill. You don't have to like them. I'm not telling you to like them, but if you want a fluff romance read, I would tell you to read Colleen Hoover. The next one is Second Chance Mistletoe Kisses. This is a fluffy holiday read followed by Christmas Land, same author. And yes, it's another fluffy holiday read. The next two books are also the same type of like fluffy romance, and it's Falling in Line and Campaigning for a Midnight Kiss. I enjoyed all the books in this category. I just don't want to be judged for enjoying them. Next are books that I found to be really good. I would probably recommend them, but I'm not going to reread them. First one on here is the Lightlark series. Overall, I really enjoyed the series. For those of you who have read it, I am team both of them. I'm not going to pick anymore. I refuse, okay? If you've read the whole series, you'll understand why I'm refusing. If you haven't read the whole series, or if you haven't read it all, pick up the series and then come back to this video and let me know which team you're on. Second is the Inheritance Games. This series was really good. I think the hype around the books is worth it, but I do think it's more YA. And because of that, I didn't read any of the other spin-offs, but overall, it is a really good series. Then we have One Dark Window. I don't know if it was the hype around it that made it not be as good as I thought it was going to be, but it was still a really good series. And the fantasy aspects around it were very interesting. I personally haven't read a book with this type of plot. Then we have the Cinder series. Anyone who's into Disney retellings and sci-fi will really enjoy this series. Next is the Once Upon a Heart series. This is a series that comes after the Caraval series, and I really enjoyed it. I think about Jax all the time. He was my favorite in the first set of books. I just wasn't into Legends love story as much. The next book is another Disney retelling. It's called Princess of Thorns. This book is very well paced. It's a standalone and it wraps up really nicely, like without feeling rushed, considering how short the book is. Next is Circe. She appears in the Odyssey. If you're into Greek mythology, you'll probably really enjoy this book. It's well written and paced. The last one we have is A Cursed Son. I think this is one of the ones that I got as an ARC read. The book was really good, but it ends on a cliffhanger, and I don't think that they're going to release another book for it. So maybe I wouldn't recommend this one. Next is our rapid fire section. If you don't want to hear about any personal development books, I recommend going to this timestamp. But if you do, here are some books that I read this year that were for personal development purposes. Starting with Geek Parenting. This book is literally what it sounds like. It's parenting advice based off like geeky shows, movies, and books. Then we have It Didn't Start With You, How Inherited Family Trauma Shapes Who We Are and How to End the Cycle. This book has really helpful exercises, but a lot of the topics brought up in the book were a bit of a stretch, and I didn't enjoy it. One example that stands out would be how down the line, this guy ends up going to jail for doing his business partner dirty. And I guess like his attorney found out that like his great grandfather had murdered his business partner. And this was like the karmic cycle of him paying for his ancestors' like sins. And that was just like, that was just, no. It did have helpful exercises though. It did have helpful exercises. I think I ended up giving this book like 2 stars on Goodreads. I don't know. The next one is Raising Critical Thinkers. This book is literally what it sounds like. It has really helpful exercises to help your child think more critically. Then there's Almost Adulting. This book is really cute if you're new to adulting, but if you're someone who has already read personal development books, I wouldn't recommend picking this one up. Then we have Unfuck Yourself. It's essentially ways to stop doing yourself dirty. The next set of books are going to be for professional development. I work in the legal field. If you also work in the legal field, you might find some of these interesting. The first one is Intellectual Property, a very short introduction. It literally is a very short introduction. And if you know nothing about intellectual property, this is a really good jumping off point because it explains intellectual property very well. Then there's Trademark, Legal Care for Your Business and Product Name. After that, I read Paralegal Practice and Procedures. This book is awesome, and I constantly reference back to it. And I think that's all of them. That's everything for our rapid fire section. So let's get right back into the more fun books. And that next category is books that are unmemorables. So literally, I can't remember the plot to these books. So I'm just gonna, I guess, rapid fire these ones off too. So Queen of None, Exchange of Love, The Land the Gods Forgot, the irony, and A Burden of Ice and Bone. I literally can't remember the plot of any of these books, but I did read it cover to cover. I just can't remember it. And the last category is books that I can't stop thinking about. So I'll recommend them, and I'm probably going to end up rereading these books at some point. Starting with the Fireborn series. If you liked Game of Thrones or Fourth Wing, you'll like this series. It's really good. And it's not like graphic like Game of Thrones because it is a YA series, but the political world in it is awesome. It's very well developed. The next one I read that I really enjoyed was I, Robot. This is the book that inspired the movie I, Robot, but that's as far as it goes. It was just inspiration. The book goes a lot deeper into the whole artificial technology stuff. So if you're into sci-fi, definitely pick this one up. Next one is The Silent Patient. This is a book that was really hyped up on TikTok. And the hype around this book, in my opinion, was totally worth it. The plot twist it has is amazing. Like a quick little synopsis on it. There is a patient who killed her husband and now she's not talking. And it follows the therapist or psychologist in his quest to try to get her to talk about what happened. Then we have The Things We Leave Unfinished. This one was written by Rebecca Yarros. If you liked Fourth Wing, you'll probably like this. It is not a fantasy book though. It goes through two love stories, one in the modern time and one in the past. And this book has a twist in it that I didn't see coming until it was staring me in the face. Then we have Harry Potter. I didn't finish reading this series because I am reading it with my son and the reading level just got too hard for his comprehension level. I want to finish reading it so bad, but I do have to wait on him. If you like Harry Potter, you need to pick up the books because the books have so much more meat in them than the movies do. The next one is a little bit of a weird read. It's called Mary. It's perfect for fall, winter time, and it's got cults and ghosts and all types of weird stuff in it that you just pick it up. It's such a weird book. It's so good. I think about it regularly. Then we have The Husband's Secret. This one was really good. The ending made me cry. Then we have The Measure. This is a book that has multiple POVs and the characters are in some way, shape, or form interconnected. And the premise of this story is really interesting. Everyone gets a box, and this box has a string in it that tells them when they're going to die. And then the story just kind of progresses from there. Next is the Mindfuck series. This is a dark romance. It's really good though, because the female main character is essentially getting revenge for something that was done to her. If you like dark romances, I would pick this one up. Then we have the Splintered series. I might be biased on this because it's an Alice in Wonderland retelling and she's literally my favorite Disney character. If you also like Alice in Wonderland, I'd recommend picking up this series. It is a YA series, but it's a really good YA series in my opinion. Then we have the X-Hex, which I wonder if maybe this should be in the We Listen and We Don't Judge category. It's a cute witchy romance. It's a fluff book. It's a fluff book, but I really liked it. It was a really good fluff book. And the last one I have on here is a classic. It's Fahrenheit 451. It's a dystopian book. If you like dystopian books, you should read it. I was very impressed of how it's a book written in the 50s, but it's very applicable to what's going on in today's climate. And that is all the books I read in 2024. I hope there was something in here that interested you. And since you already made it this far, you should just click all the buttons. Seriously, like it, subscribe to my channel, all that jazz. And hopefully I see you in the next one. Later.